The Political Architect Show.
Hi, I'm Dwight Patel. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to our very first show of 2019. I just want to welcome everyone, Dr. Nidek and Dr. Broughton. Nick has come all the way from New Jersey. He's a student at University of Maryland, and everyone knows our own native son, Ryan Nidek, here. Why don't you guys do a little intro, then we'll go to issue number, our first topic. You want to talk? Live broadcasting.
Yep. My name is Ryan Nidek. I am the chairman of the Montgomery County Teenage Republicans and a panelist here on Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show.
Hi, my name is Nick Broughton. As Dwight said, I'm a student at the University of Maryland. I'm also the chairman of the Warren County Young Republicans in the state of New Jersey.
Here today, we just learned this afternoon the government will be open, so the 25% that was shut down will be open Monday morning. So government employees, you guys wanted this. We're open Monday. But on a serious note, the government shutdown was because of border security. Ryan, what do you think about border security? I think we really need to have a wall or a barrier or something. Yeah, as the old saying goes, fences make for good neighbors.
Yeah, I think it's certainly important to invest money in border security. As for a wall, I think if this, for some reason, the Democrats really seem to have a strong opposition, not to border security fund, well, the more extreme ones do, but the mainstream Democrat Party has an opposition specifically to a wall. But if you say, we're going to spend the same amount of money on some sort of
chain link fence,
not even that, but same amount of money on some sort of more high-tech surveillance methods such as drones, etc., they'd be perfectly okay with it. So if that's what it takes to move it forward, I think that's a compromise we should be willing to make, because I think in a lot of cases a virtual wall can be more effective than a physical wall, but we need some sort of security at the southern border to stop the flow of illegal immigration coming in.
Nick?
I think for the most part, Republicans and Democrats both agree that we need something at the border. I think the bigger issue comes down to exactly what that's going to be, as you guys were discussing, whether that's a physical object or if that's more high-tech surveillance and hiring more Border Patrol officers. But either way, I think everyone's in agreement that we do need to tend more to border security. I think that it's very interesting when you look back about a decade, you can see Democrats actually agreeing with the same policies that they now are disagreeing with. And over that time frame, the only thing that's really changed is who's in the White House. So it's very interesting to see how the ideology shifts and how the thoughts will change based on who's in the White House, and that's going to affect more of the policies than their actual own beliefs. So I think it's upsetting that over the past month we've had to see this political battle. That's really what it boils down to. I think it's all politics at this point. I really don't think that there's anything substantial getting done. It's a shame that we had to shut down the government over this.
And final thoughts I've got on this whole thing is I think we need more Border Patrol folks at the border. Fences, barriers, whatever you want to call it, a magical, mystical wall, back in the days, when I used to watch cartoons when I was a kid. Even in the He-Man universe, they put a wall between the good guys and the bad guys to keep the bad guys away. Castles had walls to repel invaders. Walls, fences, barriers, that's what we need.
I think it's important, too, that when you note that President Trump said something important where, his intention isn't because we don't like the people on the outside of the wall. The reason why we want a wall is because we love the people inside. And I think that's an important distinction to make, before we move on to that next topic.
Yep, and this wall is not intended to keep people in. Like the Berlin Wall was built to keep the people in, captive. This wall is to keep people out and keep people inside safe.
Yes. Right. Now to move on to our next topic, we're going to invite a guest to the panel from our live studio audience. Please welcome up to the panel Mark Uncapher, Secretary of the Maryland Republican Party.
I think you just caught Mark off guard.
Right. So, welcome, Mr. Uncapher. How are you?
Good, thank you. Glad to be here.
Mark, let's... Mark, we were having you talk, give us your two thoughts on
Muller investigation.
Muller investigation, and our most famous alumni, Roger Stone, is in the news once again.
Well, he's been predicting that he was going to be indicted for a long time.
He might be the first GW alumni to be indicted by two different grand juries.
Probably not true. But that would suggest a level of ethics.
Anyways, but yeah, and you went to school with Roger, right, at GW? He was one of your classmates.
I did. Well, actually, he was a class ahead of me, but he was involved in Young Republicans at that time. He got caught up in the Watergate scandal when he was 19 years old, as I recall. He was hired by, now you're really stretching my memory, but one of the dirty tricks people. He went on.
One of the plumbers?
I don't think it was the plumbers. It was a separate unit, and they were doing stuff to sort of juvenile stuff to throw the Democrats off guard.
And as for the Mueller investigation, what are your thoughts on? Do you really think there is?
Well, it's interesting. What he's accused of doing is that he publicly suggested that he had more contacts with WikiLeaks, and his defense has been that he was just kiping the information that he was getting from a variety of sources, and he really didn't have any contacts. So it's going to be necessary for Mueller to be pretty convincing that there were contacts between Stone and WikiLeaks. So it becomes a fairly not technical, but a very isolated case focused just on that aspect of Stone's efforts.
Right.
Well, I think with the Mueller investigation, I think the real thing is I don't think the investigation itself and the indictments itself are as important in the long run, because people will talk about it now in the current news cycle and then they'll forget about it. It's how does it shift the course of public opinion on President Trump. And right now, most people are not in support of impeaching the president. Only the most extreme members of the Democrat Party are in that position. But the real risk is if he starts to come out with stuff that seems more substantial, that starts to change. So that's the risk that we're running. And I think
what we found is the left is really gunning for the president. I mean, you saw the BuzzFeed article last week where BuzzFeed basically said, we got a smoking gun, it's impeachable, the president. And then even Mueller had to come out and say, no, that's not true. And this is just, a long history of fake news from the left. I mean, it started back with the Tet offensive and the coverage in CBS's famous 60 Minutes interview with General Westmoreland.
What I think the left, and I think you're absolutely right about Trump derangement syndrome, is just a real illness. What the left, I think, has completely misunderstood is that when people voted for Trump, they understood that they were getting somebody who was going to be a disruptor, who was going to shake things up, and that's why things that probably would have stopped another politician's career in their tracks, they voted for him with their eyes opening, because they said, here's a guy who's going to shake things up in Washington. And that creates a very high bar where people are really going to say, wait a second, they've seen enough.
And the 2016 election really was a choice between what was perceived as everything wrong with our politics and Hillary Clinton, what was perceived as everything wrong with our culture and Donald Trump. And people, it was a cultural revolution in a way, and people said, we don't care about the diplomatic, political, presidential politician as we normally would.
They wanted a street fighter, and that's what they've got. Yeah. Nick?
I think that no matter what you think of the Mueller investigation, it's important to note his responsibility this week. The special counsel came out and spoke about the BuzzFeed article that came out. No matter how you feel about the Mueller investigation, you have to appreciate the fact that he was able to come forward and speak out about how this BuzzFeed article was just completely wrong. And it's important that we can see that side of him. It's going to be interesting to see how he moves forward, since we do hear relatively little out of this group. It's going to be interesting to see, what his next statement is going to be to the public. I think that it's important to remember that the Democrats, like you said, there is a Trump derangement syndrome. People are gunning for the president. But I think that it's good news to see that Mueller and the special counsel is taking their responsibility seriously and calling out fake news articles where they see them.
And I totally agree. And as Mark said, there is Trump derangement syndrome. I want to shift gears a little bit, and we just re-inaugurated Governor Larry Hogan to a second term. Historical. Last Republican to get a second term was Governor McHugh. And real quick story, Governor McHugh was a roads governor. He started the two beltways. He started the conversion of friendship airports into what we have today, a world-class airport at BWI. Governor Hogan wants to fix the traffic gridlock on the two beltways, the BW Parkway, I-270. We've got a roads governor, and as I once stated, Maryland moves forward when we have Republican governors. It was Governor Ehrlich who gave us the Governor Ehrlich Expressway, which is the ICC. In Montgomery County, that was a project that was on the books since the old days. Governor Ehrlich used to have a nice joke where he says you'd see public hearing for ICC, and underneath you'd see Agnew for governor signs underneath it. That is how long the ICC was in the planning stage. It took a Republican to push it through and make it happen. Mark, let's talk about the governor's second term. What do you think? What are some of the highlights, prognostications of term 2 of Governor?
Well, it's going to be difficult. One of the challenges that he has is the fact that Republicans were not able to get the majority, not the majority, but enough of the votes to be able to sustain the governor's veto. And so that is going to require a fair amount of ducking and weaving on the part of the governor to be able to deal with the fact that the Democrats are lined up to do things like increase minimum wage to try and we'll see what they do with the Kerwin Commission and sanctuary state. So the interesting thing is that because the governor did so well, he also has something of a bully pulpit and is looking for opportunities to push back. And so the Democrats, I think, are kind of weighing how far they could push him without going too far with the popular sentiment.
Nick?
I have to agree. I mean, you're looking right now, the Democrats hold the State House, and with Governor Hogan, it's going to be difficult for him to get anything done, with the Democrats being able to, with the Republicans not being able to stop the Democrats in the State House. And I'd like to see Governor Hogan fulfill some of his more conservative policies that he would have in his first term if he had that Republican support. Again, though, I think it's going to be difficult for him in a state that's, so blue to really get this done. So, it's upsetting. I wish that we would have seen more Republicans elected in this past election so that we could have supported the governor. So I'm gonna be looking out to see what he can get done by himself for the time being, and what he's able to stop the Democrats from pushing through.
And I think the governor, the governor's big hallmark of his second term is going to be transportation solutions. I think the governor understands we need to use all the above solutions. I know the left likes to say want to put everyone in buses and trains, but as we've learned, many studies have done by Reason Foundation that BRT really doesn't work. Trams and trolleys don't work. I mean, look at Washington D.C. They've got that one trolley line which is failing. And I think the governor's idea of building more roads, and taking the tact of what Houston, Texas did, which was built more roads to alleviate traffic congestions, opposed to the contrast Los Angeles, which relied on mass transit and buses, trains, and they still have one of the worst traffic nightmares in the country. While Houston, Texas, it's getting better. There's a lot of construction going on in Houston, but people understand that it will get better. It's a little bit of pain. I know, just like here in Montgomery County, as well as around the state, people are saying, oh, you can't bulldoze my house. You can't do this. Eminent domain. It's going to be costly. But, let's look at the big picture here. It's about quality of life. You know how many people are probably being late running to kids' soccer games, piano recitals, and so on, because they're sitting in traffic. And that's just my little take on the governor's second term, I think, in transportation. And I know there's a lot of naysayers out there who say this and that, but I think the governor is a lot smarter than the legislator. And I think a lot of the Democrats also understand transportation is a real problem, especially in Montgomery County, Baltimore County. The big four counties has a big transportation problem. And, Brian?
Yeah, and I completely agree. And I really think, but on another note, somewhat related, well, very related actually, I think the big fight, at least for the first 2 years of this Hogan second term, is going to be redistricting.
Yes.
We already have the governors commission for independent redistricting based on the court case. I know Brian Frost is appealing, but we'll see how that all ends up. But I mean, hopefully the Supreme Court does not interfere and does not change does not reverse the decision, and we go forward with an independent commission for the 2020 election. If that does happen, great. We fixed a lot of the egregious gerrymandering that's going on in the 6th District. If that doesn't happen, we're in for a big fight because the governor's vetoes cannot be sustained, but there is somewhat of a political mandate from Governor Hogan being reelected through what ended up being a bit of a blue wave for this to be done, for there to be fair redistricting. And that was one of his main issues, so he's definitely going to come fight hard for it.
Maryland built a very effective flood wall against the blue wave in this state. We not just elected Governor Hogan, he trounced the Democrat. It was so nice. Election night at 8:10 or 5 after 8, we saw the results come in. Maryland, Governor Hogan reelected.
Got called very early.
It was beautiful seeing that they had the numbers. Ben Jealous was 68 and Governor was at 35 when the early returns. But they were already that was beautiful because I remember years and years of seeing where the Republicans ahead and they called the state for the Democrat.
Okay.
But we have, like I said, they built an effective wall against the Democrats. I think the governor has a mandate. I think if you talk to the run-of-the-mills average Democrat, even in Montgomery County, they don't like this gerrymandering. They know that District 8 should be a Montgomery County district. We have nothing in common with people in Frederick and Carroll County in District 8. District 6 has, the Western Maryland has nothing in common with Montgomery County. Montgomery County, we go and golf on weekends. I mean, they don't golf in Cumberland. Nothing. I don't think I'm speaking out of term here. And I know
I've never golfed in my life.
That's because you're from Buffalo. If you grew up on Long Island, you would have golfed.
I guess.
Golfing's about as common up there as mild wings.
Exactly.
Ooh.
Mark?
I think redistricting is going to be an interesting challenge. I think one of the most interesting possibilities is getting single-member districts in the House of Delegates. Mm-hmm. There's actually a legal argument that the current system of selecting some districts to have be split and then some work as groups of 3 is subject to potential legal challenge, and I think that's going to be something to watch.
And here's something. The reason Virginia has single-member districts is because they were a Jim Crow state. I don't know where it got lost, but Maryland was also a Jim Crow state. Thurgood Marshall was denied admissions to the University of Maryland because he was African American because of Jim Crow laws. I don't know why, for some reason, Maryland basically beat the rap. Every southern state has single-member legislative districts. That's all because they didn't want to. They wanted to increase the chance for minorities to win in single-member districts. That's why Virginia's got each delegate has his own. It's a one-member district. Maryland should also be, because us being a former Jim Crow state, we should also have single-member districts. It'd be fair it'd make it easier for minorities. If you look right now, it's the good old boys network on the Democrat side. If you are a Silver Spring Democrat, you get to move all over the place in Montgomery County politics and move on to the State House. And if we had single-member districts, you might actually have people from outside of inside the Beltway, lower tier of the county getting elected. Like you have Democrats that live up in the upper county that have a hard time winning in some of these districts just because of the way they're drawn.
That's an interesting bit of history, but I think really the argument that we need to take as Maryland Republicans in favor of this is the argument brought up by Mark, and also I think the argument being pursued by the state party that it's unequal representation to have
Absolutely.
3 people in some districts, 2 people in some districts, 1 people in some districts. How is that fair that people in 2-member districts only get 2 committee assignments for their delegates, and people in 3-member districts get 3 committee assignments for their delegates?
Yep.
Those people in 3-member districts have unequal representation. They have a bigger say in what's going on in Annapolis through their vote, and that's unfair.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now let's move on to our next topic. Thank you, Mr. Uncapher, for joining the panel. We'd like to welcome to the panel Mr. Nick Allman to talk about the recent controversy with what is known as the MAGA hat kids from the Covington School in Kentucky. So a little background on this story. So it came out, I'm sure everyone has seen the clip, MAGA hat kids. I'm sure everyone has seen the MAGA hat kids. Everyone has seen these kids. They've gotten a lot of attention. Initially, it came out that, oh no, look at this kid. He's coming. He's smirking in the face of this Native American. How disrespectful. And plus, he's wearing a Trump hat, so it fits with our narrative, so the media is going to cover it. Then the whole thing changed because, as reported, the Reason Foundation did a very great job on this and really helping turn the tide on this story. Is when the full video for the thing came out, it turns out the media jumped to judgment completely. Not really a surprise, but disappointing nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And those kids were sitting there. They were waiting for their bus on a field trip. And then an extremist group starts shouting gay slurs at them. Mm-hmm. And then this Mr. Nathan Phillips, the Native American man in question, starts coming and banging a drum in their face. And I want to ask you, Nick, if you were 14 years old and on a national mall and on a field trip, and someone came up and started banging a drum in your face, how would you react in that situation?
It would be awkward as all heck, man. I would probably smile and laugh awkwardly because in awkward situations, you smile and laugh. That's a normal reaction. So you have to understand what these kids had gone through at that point. I mean, they were, to borrow a phrase from poker, they were on tilt from what the black Hebrew Israelites had been saying to them for an hour, and they couldn't really run away from them because that was their meeting spot to get on their bus to go home. Have you guys ever interacted with these guys before living in D.C.?
I've actually seen them at the Gallery Place Metro.
I've seen them at the Gallery Place Metro. I saw them once at Union Station.
They're very entertaining. If you're bored and you can't afford a movie ticket, you should go down.
These guys are they're Westboro Baptist Church kind of crazy, lunatics. Us living here, you've probably seen them once or twice, so we know to ignore them. Mm-hmm. What worries me is, what these guys want more than anything is attention. They like the fact that when they say offensive things to people, it gets them all riled up. They're a bunch of losers who believe crazy things that you can disprove with genetics. And I'm worried that because they caused this huge controversy that they're going to be emboldened and now realize that you can go to places like the National Mall or museums where people from out of town who don't know to ignore them like we do, you can harass them and it's going to cause a scene and then they're going to enjoy the attention that they got. Also, just with regards to the whole controversy, what was most fascinating to me wasn't just that it happened. In the news cycle is so tethered now to social media, and if a 60-second clip that confirms a narrative one way or another makes its way to Twitter, that thing will go viral and it'll become a self-perpetuating cycle. But once the full story came out, once the video footage was reviewed, once Robbie from Reason came out with that piece and actually showed what was going on, that these kids were on tilt from being harassed by this extremist group, and they were sort of yelling at them back after taking verbal abuse for an hour, and then they were approached by the Native American who started doing the drum thing, and they sort of laughed awkwardly because they didn't know what to do. Once that truth came out and the initial story was proved to be false, a bunch of people in left-wing media outlets doubled down in face of evidence contrary to their initial opinions. Which doesn't make sense to me. If
these kids did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, at this point, if you still believe the Nathan Phillips, the Native American guy's account of the story, and not
alleged
these kids,
Native American. Do we really know that he's Native American?
Come on,
he could be another Pocahontas. I'm just saying.
That's not the battle to pick here, but
I know. But I'm just saying.
If you still believe his account of the story, then you're believing what you want to believe because those kids were wearing Trump hats, and you think everyone who supports the president is racist and xenophobic, and that confirms your narrative.
If you think that if you're wearing the Trump hat, that means you're the bad guy, then I guess this entire conversation that we've been having in the media and our culture over the past couple days is meaningless. Yeah. It'd be over in 60 seconds if Trump hat equals bad. Yeah. What would be the point?
We've got members of Congress that want to ban MAGA hats, the sale of MAGA hats. You have
that wouldn't fly.
You've got the new congresswoman from the great city of New York, despite having elected this woman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who basically says the MAGA hats is basically the new modern-day hood that the KKK wears. I'm sorry, I think the left has gotten so unhinged by the color red. They're kind of like bulls. I mean, you could be wearing a red hat, a red cap, a red Phillies cap, and people would go, he's wearing a MAGA hat. He's a bad person. You know, that is how bad these people have gotten. I mean, I can't imagine how many Coke drivers, delivery drivers who wear those red Coke caps have gotten beaten up by the left, you know, think he's mistaken that for a MAGA hat.
I think what's even more concerning, though, is the fact that there was no time given to look further into this story before the press put it out. The fact that it was immediately shared, that, you know, they came to their own conclusion. And I think that what's important here is you can see exactly what the media thinks of Trump and of people who support the Make America Great Again movement just by this. I mean, there was no time taken to find out what the greater perspective was, to understand what happened here. I mean, the story that I read from CNN immediately after this occurred was that these Trump supporters encircled a Native American man.
And then he went on CNN and said that they did that.
Yes, exactly.
And now he's saying that he would be willing to meet with the kids to, quote unquote, have a dialogue. If you were one of those kids... If I was one of those kids at age 16, maybe even now, and I sat down with a guy who lied about me in front of the nation, I'm not sure that dialogue would go very well. I'd be pissed.
No. And you know what? They should be. And the other thing is, you know, you get the kids here, when you see the full video, they're actually dancing along and they're singing to the song that the Native American man is playing. I mean,
well, all sorts of stuff goes on in the National Mall. At first, they thought it was just somebody, you know, playing music just for playing music, and they weren't intent to be disrespectful.
Yeah, and the big picture of this goes back to Kavanaugh. We had a whole bunch of lies told by Judge Kavanaugh, and then it was disproven, and yet you still have people that still believe, you know. The story still. I mean, this happens all the time with the media. We had it with the Duke lacrosse case. When this happened, I just had a gut feeling something isn't right about this story. And lo and behold, about a month later, we find out the woman made up the whole story.
Well,
Jim Nifong lost his job over this.
The original story always gets many times more views than the correction.
Yes, exactly.
So the media's the approach that they're taking more and more now, which is very bad for this country, is we don't need to do all the fact-checking that we would have done 10 years ago. Let's just put it out if we have some sort of confidence that it's right, and then if it's wrong, we'll just correct it. Because they know full well that if it confirms their narrative, people will still believe what was originally put out, because that's all they saw.
It's like hands up, don't shoot. It never happened, but people still today believe that happened. And that spurred so many days of rioting in St. Louis, and we found out, no, it was the guy who was trying to rob the guy, and the guy was just defending himself.
I think it's important, too, that we notice that, you know, this is becoming what the media is now. It's all clickbait. You know, media makes money from how many times they get you onto their sites, reading their articles. That's just their business. And the fact that now they're putting out these clickbait articles, they're trying to draw you in by misleading a lot of the public. And I think that, you know, while I don't agree with everything necessarily being fake news, there's certainly a perspective that's spun on almost all of these news stories that, you know, we really need to be looking into, and there needs to be someone who's, you know, doing the fact checking.
But I think one thing about this story that made it sort of somewhat unprecedented, or at least recently unprecedented, was it was initially promoted by like social media algorithms. It wasn't necessarily at first, at the very beginning, how it took off. You know, bad journalists and you know, poor news media sites furthering this story. It started with stuff posted on Twitter that was then reshared and liked and retweeted, and it just snowballed like crazy because people just kept on clicking retweet. So it just sort of organically became a story because of the way that social media works.
I think it's important to
that's
show
new.
The distinction, because, you know, we have the BuzzFeed article, same time period here over the past few weeks. And, you know, the BuzzFeed article is a very different approach. I think you're right that social media actually created this story. This wasn't journalists going out and finding this. This was social media, you know, building the perspective of what happened, and then, you know, the news taking it and reporting as social media had. I think that's different. You know, you see the BuzzFeed article went the opposite way. It was actually BuzzFeed that put something out, and that's a new strategy. It's dangerous. We get to the point now where stories are going to start being heard from people and people's perspective without getting the full truth.
Yep.
Anything else to add?
No, basically, I mean, you guys covered. I mean, this, basically, in 2016, journalists came out of the closet, and now they basically are just, we're going to be Democrats. We're not even going to pretend to be nonpartisan. Basically, this is what we're getting.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Nick, for joining
you.
the panel.
Be careful not to knock over the TV next person who comes here. This is a dangerous chair.
Dangerous chair. Okay, now we would love to welcome up to the panel to talk about the egregious new abortion law in New York, Miss Liz Matory. Yeah. So a little background on Liz. Liz was the nominee in 2018 for Maryland Republicans in the 2nd Congressional District. And is there anything else you'd like to say about your bio before we get started?
I'm just excited to be here back in Montgomery County for a hot moment. So thank you.
Yeah, she also wrote a book. You can check it out on Amazon, Born Again Republican. Great read.
Yep.
Okay.
So this weekend, this past week, the state of New York Assembly passed probably the most egregious. You'd think Beelzebub was there when they were writing these laws.
We might be there. Actually.
Abortion, where you can, the day of, I don't want this kid anymore. That's pretty much, and this is outrageous. This is something that even sensible Democrats should be opposing. In the state of New York, you gave the majority to the Democrats last year. This is what you're getting. Get ready. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you've got parents in senior citizen homes, nursing homes, I can see this General Assembly saying, hey, once you turn 82, you've lived long enough. We'll just put you on the Long Island, on the Staten Island Ferry, and we'll just drill a hole, and you can just sink down to the bottom of the river, East River over there. But it is really, I am very pro-life, and I find this law offensive, and I think even pro-choice, thoughtful folks will find this law offensive. What's next? There is a joke I have in this, is where, too bad we can't include. I'll skip the joke.
Honestly, there's no joke for it. And that's one of the main issues that I took an absolute 180 in, in my transition from being a former Democrat, then being an independent.
Recovering Democrat.
Right, a really conservative Republican. And, even when 4 or 5 years ago, being at a NARAL rally, it was the Hobby Lobby case. And, we went back to NARAL, and I asked them, I was like, what happens if my constituents don't want late-term abortion? And they said, we have nothing to say to that. And even back then, in my heart of hearts, I was like, I knew that something was wrong. Knowing full well that I was pro-choice, I was supportive of Planned Parenthood. That's how I thought. But even I was like, that's just too much. I'm not willing to accept that. And I'm I'm crying about how much advocacy I was doing. I literally have to pay penance for what I did in my own little world. But now you're seeing it. They have no qualms about killing, murdering 9-month-old developed children. That, if you even think 14 weeks, 12 weeks, with lethal injections, they said, you can kill an infant through a lethal injection, but they got rid of the death penalty. I'm also against the death penalty, too.
Gosnell went to jail for this exact same stuff. New York has not just vindicated Dr. Gosnell or whatever.
Sick. It really, really is sick. And I think that, again, when will Democrats realize how much my former party has been lost? What else do you need? This is proof. This is why you see someone like me becoming a vocal, the people, I'm so sick of it, because when they talk smack about Republicans,
we don't need to worry about
knowing full well how welcomed I've been literally from this central committee right here in Montgomery County by the TARs, by the, the YRs. I wish that more people weren't afraid of us, because quite frankly, you're not afraid of a party that is clapping, cheering for the death of children.
Yes, it's really disgusting. I'm staunchly pro-life, so obviously I'm against this. But to think of this from the pro-choice perspective, the mainstream pro-choice perspective, even if you're okay with aborting a baby early in pregnancy, 8.5 months, 9 months if the baby's late. Oh, I don't want to do this for another week.
Yeah,
that's
The day
disgusting.
of.
That is, I mean, that's a baby that could survive outside the womb.
There's infanticide.
What?
This is what Barack Obama voted
I mean,
for when he was in the state senate in Illinois.
Why not just extend it? Why not give you a 2-week return policy? Why not 2 weeks later just say,
Or how about-
because I mean it's basically the same thing.
Or how about when
They're
they just
fully
become-
alive
yeah.
inside the
Or how about
womb.
when they just become inconvenient? Like when they become teenagers, they start talking about, I think I'm going to abort you now.
I mean, if anything, this is what Hitler dreamed of.
Yeah.
You know, this is what.
And the founder of Planned Parenthood.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like it took them, it took them what, like 70 years to achieve it, but they are now full on, full throttle, unapologetic, picking and choosing. Oh, I wanted a blue-eyed child, so I'm going to kill this brown-eyed child.
Eugenics is back in style in America now. It's disgusting, and it's really sad. This is what we've come to as a country.
I mean, this is just, and I know, people, say I'm a bit of an extremist, a bit of a right-wing, ideologue. But if you think about it, in 1992 when Bill Clinton ran for president, the biggest issue was, and this is there's a big, where gays wanted to serve their country. Like, all we want to do is this. That's reasonable, And then, then a few years later it was, we want to be able to get married. And people said, oh, that's reasonable, And now we're at killing babies. Is that reasonable? No. This is that basically, I know people, there's that slippery slope, what's next? Are we going to kill grandma now? I mean, is Nancy Pelosi going to be the next one we abort because she's becoming too much of an inconvenience and a liability to people?
Yeah. Well, again, there's also, I guess, the silver lining, if there is a silver lining to any of this, is that we have federalism.
Yeah.
It's now restricted, hopefully, to New York.
Yeah.
And hopefully, like what, we were talking about the people who won in Annapolis. There were about a handful of conservative Republicans that won. Dan Cox won, Jesse Pippi won, Lauren Arakan won, Nino Mangione won. Mind you, none of them were in Montgomery County, but there are people who we can look to say, hold the fort somehow, that we have a little bit of hope here in Maryland, knowing full well the Democratic Party doesn't have any diversity.
With the Democrat Party, there's some Montgomery County Democrat saying, damn it, why weren't we first at this? Yeah. There's a Democrat that's
if they try it in Maryland next, I mean, unfortunately, the Maryland General Assembly is further in the left than it was a year ago today.
True.
But at the same time, I think, unlike in the short term, I don't think abortion overall is an issue where the majority of people in Maryland agree with us. And it's very unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. But on this, I think this is something we should go down kicking and screaming, because I think if you actually explain this to people, the majority of the people in Maryland do not support this.
Yep.
This is disgusting, it's despicable, it's absurd.
And you have, also you look at the Democrats, Anthony Muse, Sam Aurora, both pro-life, family values Democrats. What happened? They got run out of the party.
Absolutely.
You had Glenn Ivey run out of the party because he's too conservative for them.
Right.
The Democrat Party is no longer it's not even Bill Clinton's Democrat Party anymore.
Right. I'm concerned. I mean, I appreciate the fact that Governor Hogan has won a second term. But my concern about his kumbaya moment at his inaugural last week is that if he's wanting to compromise, please know who you're trying to compromise with. And I really beg him and every other person who is in the administrative side. I think in the legislature we do have strong conservatives, but when you're in the administration, how do you compromise for late-term abortion?
Yeah, I think the governor understands you
know
can't.
What I mean?
You can't basically compromise with evil, and this is evil as evil gets.
Well,
I mean,
we'll
this
see.
is, I don't see. I mean, the
We'll
governor is a
see.
thoughtful man. I don't think he is going to, in his heart of hearts, be He does not want to go down as the governor that allowed
Late-term abortion?
Yes, I was going to say something else, baby killing.
Well,
but,
I mean, we have
that's
that-
what it is now. It has become baby killing. I know a lot of even people in the pro-life movement don't like when I refer to people as baby killers, but with this New York law, it is baby killing.
Yeah.
It is killing babies.
Yeah. No, and I think we also have a late-term abortion facility across the street from Walter Johnson, I think.
Yes, we do.
In Rockville. So, or is that Bethesda still?
Bethesda.
North, is it right?
No,
270 is it
201.
Bethesda still right there?
214.
No, it's real
Right,
Bethesda.
right, real
201.
Bethesda, right across from around the corner from DSW.
Yep.
So, it's really tough. I mean, it'll be interesting to see that people always focus on President Trump and having an issue with him, but you had a really good quote, like the first 2 minutes when you said something about like we literally had a cultural revolution right now. We're in the midst of it, and we should see, like, it's not necessarily to say is there a difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. It is, do you want our country to exist or don't you? Do you want our foundational principles or not? And you have to pick one. Like, those are the sides that we're
It's an either or proposition.
Yeah. I mean, I wish they weren't that way, but this is what we got.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so what else is? You want to tell us a little about what you're doing these days?
Well, I decided after I lost the general, which was obviously an uphill battle anyway, that I would finally sit for the Maryland bar.
Yay!
So coming up next month, I will be,
Best of
sitting
luck to
there.
you. Best of luck to you.
2
Even though you don't need it.
Well, no, I mean, prayers, positivity, all that, because, it would be great to be able to advocate for people.
Nick, you're from the neighboring state of New Jersey.
Not that neighboring, no. But I wanted to ask.
Sure.
What's the biggest thing that you took away from the campaign trail? I mean, you're out there every day talking to voters.
Right.
What's the biggest takeaway? What are you hearing when you're actually knocking on doors and talking to people?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, and good luck in your your collegiate experience.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
But we're still a purple state.
Yeah.
I think, in Montgomery County, even Montgomery County is purple. And it is tough, absolutely tough to run as a Republican, as literally the real minority. Let's be honest. Like when you're talking about minorities earlier, it's like, I feel really like a minority now. Like, this is the first time in my life, thank God, that I've ever felt marginalized, is as a conservative Republican. But the voters crave representation. They know things are off, whether it's gerrymandering on the legislative side and the congressional side. They don't like the fact that, incumbency, that deep-seated, when you talk about the deep state, however you want to believe it, I mean, it's in Maryland. D.C.'s one thing, but between Maryland and Virginia, we house the deep state, So what are we going to do about it? And I think that, the voters are finally realizing that, their vote matters, and that, they will take challenges to run, knowing full well if you see someone like me or Dwight or eventually you running, you have a right to try to represent your community.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Hey, now we are going to welcome up to the panel Dan McHugh, president of the Montgomery County Young Republicans, to talk about transportation.
Leave the jacket off, Dan. We're in
DC
formal
area.
here.
I gotta wear the jacket.
Okay, welcome to the panel, Dan.
Hey, well, thank you. Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Good.
How's traffic tonight getting here?
It wasn't that bad, actually.
I'm leading into the...
Oh, yeah. Actually,
Help
wasn't
us
that
here,
bad.
Dan.
Well, the government...
Nick,
the
how was your drive down from New
My
Jersey?
traffic was terrible.
The government
It was
shutdown
bad.
is still in effect till Monday, so a lot of the feds aren't on the road today. So
They're not celebrating tonight, 'cause
Traffic
they're all getting-
was light, believe it or not, coming back from Annapolis tonight. So, to rock
So we're talking about transportation, and
Well,
you folks with young eyes, so transportation in the D.C. area, as I mentioned earlier, Governor Hogan, Governor McHugh, somebody really needs to write a book. Leannis, if you're watching, write that book, Hogan and McHugh, the roads governors. But, Governor Hogan is for building roads now.
Yes, he is. And I sat through a hearing on the current road project of widening I-270 up, Frederick to Gaithersburg area, that quarter, adding new lanes. Secretary Ron was talking about it's going to be most likely be a P3. A P3 is a public-private partnership. There will be tolls, most likely included. There are some issues about the tolls. There are people unhappy to hear about that. At the same time, we need these roads built. I think there's a compromise that can be made on the tolls maybe keeping the tolls low, maybe having parts where, times a day where the tolls are less than the others, maybe even putting in an HOV lane perhaps where you're exempt from paying if you've got 3 people in the car. But I think compromises can be made. However, of course, it's hitting roadblocks in Montgomery County. Wonderful Montgomery County delegate Al Carr and chairman of the Montgomery County House delegation, Mark Corbin, put in a bill to do another environmental study to slow up this project, of course.
Yet they fast-tracked the purple line,
Yeah.
which probably killed, how many the ecosystem they already destroyed building this purple line?
Well, on that note, Dan, why widen I-270 when we should be investing in the future, public transportation?
Well, yes, and in Montgomery County, of course, Mark Elrich and many of the leftists like Jamie Raskin and George Leventhal in Tacoma Park believe that the bus rapid transit is the future of Montgomery County, that we're all just going to give up our cars and we're going to take this mega bus system, billion-dollar bus system to nowhere, I call it. But, we're all going to sing in harmony and take the bus because we pollute too much.
That's the American dream, right? A bus pass?
The American dream is to own a bus pass, not a car, according to Mark Elrich.
But in all seriousness, I think one of the things, I think in the state of Maryland, as I did a Dr. Policy's article on Maryland moving forward with Republican governors, Democrats always opposed they were against the University of Maryland College Park. If the Democrats had their way, there would be no big flagship, beautiful campus in College Park today. If the Democrats had their way, we'd have no Bay Bridge going across over to the eastern shore of Maryland. If the Democrats had their way, neither of the beltways would have been built. If they had their way, Friendship Airport would still be that little airport at Martin State Air Park and not where BWI sits now. We would never had the Bob Ehrlich Expressway if it were for if the Democrats had their way. Bottom line is, Democrats stand in the way of progress all the time. They call themselves progressive.
One of the things that I always notice about the debate between BRT and widening roads is I went to Governor Hogan's. Actually, Ryan and I were both there when Governor Hogan announced in Gaithersburg he was going to widen I-270. Great day, great moment, people very excited. One of the things I noticed that most of the Democrats that showed up at that event took their car there. They didn't ride the Montgomery County ride-on to get there to that announcement. And when I go to BRT meetings in Rockville, I always ask people, well, how many of you took the ride-on to get here to the meeting in Rockville? Oh, none? You all drove your cars? So we are a nation that drives, less than 4% of the population of Montgomery County uses the Montgomery County ride-on currently.
Especially in a suburban area. This is not Manhattan.
Yeah.
The ride-on system is not convenient for almost very few residents of Montgomery County could use ride-on that don't already.
Yeah.
It's a very inconvenient
system.
system.
Tap Mark real quick. Hey, Mark, what's the number of people you need to have an effective transportation system living in there? You mentioned this before in one of your columns about why transportation works in Manhattan and it doesn't work in Montgomery
Well, you
County.
have to have a high level of density, which is far higher than we have in the highest dense zip code, which is Tacoma Park. In most places, but Manhattan is over. I think it's like over 50,000 people per square mile. Mm-hmm. We come nothing close to that here.
Yeah.
Another side note, by the way, there was a major announcement as this broadcast is. Bernie Sanders officially announced he is running for president. So what he can do...
Hold on one real quick thought. Hey, Liz, you want to come over here real quick?
Oh, no.
You're going to be somewhere this weekend.
Oh, goodness gracious.
You're speaking somewhere. Where is that again?
I just heard about Bernie's what?
No,
I'm just saying.
You're speaking somewhere. You're speaking somewhere tomorrow, aren't
Yes, the Red Maryland Conference.
you? Maryland Conference.
It is somewhere in
Yeah, come on around here.
Ryan
Yeah,
Griffiths, if you're out there.
Unfortunately,
This
it's
is the
sold
plot.
out, but...
No, well, so I was invited to speak. I think it was
Yeah.
an all-day event. It's our first really big, Republican, conservative,
Leads into
non-elected
CPAC.
official thing for people of Red Maryland. I'm sure it'll be covered online somehow, but it goes to show you that there are Republicans, conservatives here in the state of Maryland, and just keep hope alive, people.
And it's at the Doubletree?
Doubletree in Annapolis. Well, actually, I hope people don't, protest it.
They might.
Hey, all publicity is good publicity. Thank you, Liz.
True.
Okay, sorry, get back to you. I just wanted to let Liz say a few words.
So, yeah, it's fine. I think we covered the transportation issue. Obviously, we need the roads built. It is a parking lot, not I-270. As Robin Ficker says, we need to get Montgomery County moved. You're more likely to get a parking ticket what did he used to say about the parking? I don't know. I messed it up, but
Oh, Robin would say you driving home on 270, you're not going to get a speeding ticket. You'll
you
get a parking ticket.
right, yeah. No. So I mean, and he's absolutely right about that.
Yes.
And but of course, I have a feeling our wonderful Democratic delegation of Montgomery County is going to try to throw every wrench they can to slow up this widening I-270. Sadly.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
All right, thank you.
Hey, do you want to do open forum?
Yeah, let's do a quick open
Hey,
forum.
so now for our end of the show, being in front of a live studio audience for the first time here on Dr. Politics and the Political Architect Show, we're going to try something new. We're going to have an open forum. So if anyone in the audience has something that they would like to say
Yes.
or something that they would like to bring up, we can do a shorter segment. If they could just come up,
Come on up.
get in line here and say whatever they'd like.
Nick!
So welcome back to the stage, Nick Allman. And I feel bad I didn't give you a proper introduction earlier. So Nick,
Tell us about yourself, Nick,
Yeah.
first.
Oh, okay. My name is Nick Allman. I was born in South Africa in 1992.
Whereabouts?
Before in Johannesburg. Before Mandela had actually won his election, but after he was released. So props to my parents who grew up in Michigan for having the guts to take a job down there when it wasn't exactly clear whether there was going to be a civil war or not.
Yeah.
Spent my early childhood in San Diego, California.
Beautiful country.
Yep.
San Diego.
It actually, San Diego used to be pretty solidly conservative.
Yeah.
It had the military block. It was the quintessential suburban.
Mayor Wilson, who became governor.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I'm friends with people who know him very well. He had an amazing career. It's kind of funny. So Pete Wilson, who was the mayor of San Diego and then served in the Senate and as governor, he's the only person alive who. Okay, this was true a month ago, back when Jerry Brown was governor, before Newsom got in. But he was the only person alive who had beaten an incumbent governor when he was running for senator, and an incumbent senator when that senator was running for governor. He beat Jerry Brown in 1982 for the Senate, and he beat Feinstein in 1990 when she ran for governor. So that's just kind of funny. Then I moved to Texas for college, and I decided to stay because I enjoyed it very much. Was a part of a political consulting firm over there for a little bit. I was part of their delegation to the National Nominating Convention that nominated Trump. I was a Trump delegate.
We met on the floor in Cleveland. That's why I thought you looked familiar. You gave me one of those pins.
I did?
Yes, and I gave you a Maryland pin.
Oh, okay. I didn't do very many pin trading. I kept.
Well, you gave me.
I kept most of my Texas pins and then gave them to friends and family.
You gave me a Texas pin.
I might
You wanted
have.
a Maryland pin.
well, it's a white special, so you know.
You know?
There you go. That was an
I
interesting.
knew you looked familiar.
So, what did you think of the roll call vote controversy on the first day?
First day of the roll call vote controversy, I thought it was basically I liked it because conventions are usually boring and staged. It gave nice theatrics to it. At the end of the day, we got what we wanted. I must say the Texas delegation. If you guys ever go, they're from Texas. They wear their cowboy hats, their Lone Star shirts. It's almost like Captain Texas.
I got interviewed by CBS for like half an hour. They did this thing about like young Republican delegates, and it was me and two other people on like this couch, and they talked to me for half an hour, and I'm like, I could show up in a suit and look all professional, but nah, we putting on the flag shirt and the cowboy hat, and I'm gonna play up an accent. It was fun. Anyway, so open forum. The reason I got up here, so after I was chosen to be a Trump delegate, I was kind of in my heart hoping that there might be a brokered convention, just because imagine how interesting that would have been to live through that, especially when we would have a piece of the action as delegates.
Yep.
The last time there was multiple balloting to determine a presidential nominee was like Wendell Willkie in the 40s. And then in 1956, the Democrats had 2 ballots for vice president for this weird reason. But with Bernie Sanders now coming up, the Democrats are poised to have the most crowded field in their party's history. And there's like 7 or 8 of them that are going to raise a ton of money. They eliminated superdelegates on the first ballot of voting at the DNC a couple months ago. What do you guys think are the odds? Because the Democrats are going to assume that whoever gets the nomination is going to beat Trump. Because Trump's approval rating is probably going to stay in the 40s, which incumbent presidents can win on. But they're just going to assume that whoever gets the nomination is going to beat Trump. So that might disincentivize some people to drop out. What are the odds, you guys think, that we might actually see a brokered convention, multiple balloting at the Democratic National Convention this year?
It's possible, but I see the Democrats. The Democrats are more like the Soviets, and they're kind of more, they bring out the tire irons and kneecaps, and just like they did to at the at the 2008 convention.
Where are you going here?
To all the Hillary delegates, Because remember, Hillary on paper, if they played with the books, she could have stolen.
She won the popular vote against Obama in that prime, which I find hilarious. Every time Hillary ran for president, she won the popular vote, but because of rules,
rules.
Well, because we don't do elections for the presidency just by pure popular vote, because we have this huge country that we
we're not a democracy.
Rectify. So yeah, because of delegate rules in 2008 and then electoral college in 2016, she's never won.
Hillary with 2 L's.
Huh?
Yeah, that's she did a guest spot on the failed Murphy Brown reboot, and she interviewed for Murphy's secretary job, and she goes, "I'm Hillary with 1 L because I only lost once." But no, Hillary, you're with 2 L's because you lost in 08 and you lost again in 16.
It'll certainly be interesting to see the battle between, can Bernie get all his bros back now that Beto may steal some of his bros. So you may have Bernie bros versus Beto bros going on.
Beto's going nowhere.
And California getting moved up to March.
You got no O'Malley endorsement.
That changes everything.
That's going to change a lot.
Because you have to understand, California has the largest delegation to the National Convention, even for the Republicans.
Yeah.
Even though the Republicans get no bonus delegates because that state has never voted Republican for the presidential election in recent memory, and the governorship instead. But all the bonus delegates are had for the Democrats, and they have that huge population. I mean, Harris could be the nominee just because that primary is in March.
Harris.
Just because that could be enough.
Certainly, the money's going to go to her. I think, John.
I
think there's a lot of money going to be raised for Beto. The Obama world has circled the wagons around Beto. They find him very intriguing.
Didn't Beto also go after Oprah? Like, isn't Oprah also endorsing Beto?
She was interviewing him. I don't know if they had that interview or not. I don't think she would make an endorsement. I mean, he hasn't even announced.
What they like about Beto is he skateboards and he played in a band. Sounds like a similar governor in our state. Played in a band and endorsed him, by the way. Already the president. Martin O'Malley endorsed.
Did he already drop out? Did he drop out?
Yeah, he dropped out.
Yeah, Martin O'Malley's not running. He's
Congratulations, Marty. You dropped out before. You're the first Democrat to drop out.
O'Malley was going to run and
dropped out before he was in it.
He said he was. He was in Iowa.
Yeah.
Even after not doing so hot 4 years ago?
Yes.
When there were only 3?
He doesn't have the best judgment. He's the same man who taxed the rain.
Yes.
You know what? I have to ask as a Jersey guy if anyone's familiar with Cory Booker.
Yeah.
Cory Booker right now.
Spartacus. Yeah.
Spartacus.
His phone.
Better known as
phony Spartacus moment. Yeah.
Right now, he's been campaigning. He's been in Iowa several times. He is.
They were in South Carolina or something. Did a Martin Luther King speech where Bernie, of course, called President Trump a racist.
Yeah. Interesting. That means that he might not be running that.
So he's been privately going around through Iowa and several other key states over the past, I believe, year and a half. It was pretty much since 2016 ended, he began his campaign trail. I don't know what him showing up with Bernie would mean, but he's definitely going to be involved somehow. He's already been working on donors, from my understanding, from people I've heard that are involved with him. So it's going to be interesting to see if he plays a role.
He might try. He might have. I mean, most of these Democrats who are thinking about running should decide that it might be better to not run.
And
pick a dog in the fight and be a top level surrogate, and then you can get some rewards if they make it all the way.
I think a lot of them think, though, they really think that they can beat Trump, and because of that, they're going to stay in. They're going to try. We're going to get 25 people in a debate, kind of like what we got in 2016.
I think we'll see about 30 Democrats, maybe 35 Democrats running. I mean, you've got this guy who's a state senator in West Virginia who's running for president. You got some mayor of South Bend who's thinking of running.
I mean, it does take a decent amount of money and organization to get on the primary ballot in every state.
Yeah.
Not in Maryland.
No more than 20 will be.
Not in Maryland. It's only $2.
It'll be a lot of. The more that run, the more fun the debates will be for us to make fun of all of them. So I'm certainly looking forward to that.
I hope so much that their convention opens and they don't know who it is yet.
Well,
and charge into a fight. That would be so cool.
I don't buy that. As somebody who worked on a campaign and we were sold a bill of goods about a brokered convention.
What was that campaign again?
Yeah. Well, we don't have to name names now, but that brokered convention stuff is just a bunch of gobbledygook that but I don't see it happening.
But it can only happen if you have multiple viable candidates that have different bases of power, and the delegates divide up in such a way that nobody gets half.
And that's the issue.
That could happen with the Democrats if enough people run. And if Harris wins California but nowhere else,
it'll all be about
if Bernie sweeps the Midwest but nowhere else.
I mean, money can work, but at the same time, Bernie Sanders certainly had if that revolution returns to him, he could win the primary, and even if he doesn't raise the most money.
But I'm going out on a limb here. Not one Democrat running right now that I'm even remotely fearful they could beat President Trump. I think President Trump's base is united behind him. These guys are a bunch of coalitions of wacko groups,
Especially if it's a leftist
and
group like Bernie.
If they nominate Bernie Sanders, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren,
we don't even know what Biden's going to do yet.
He's running.
He thinks,
dude, this is going to be a battle of the Titans. I'm telling you, the whole primary season could go, and without superdelegates anymore, they might not have it at the convention.
Yeah, it really
I think
could.
this is the most likely it has ever happened.
Aren't the Democrats having a convention at Thunderdome?
But who? In 2016 we had an establishment favorite.
Hey, what would they fight
all
with?
the money was going to Jeb Bush in
and
the
guns
beginning. Where's the money going to go? And is it going to go to Kamala Harris? I think there's she could be the odds-on favorite based on the money early on.
Here's
Camilla. I don't think Camilla's going anywhere. Camilla probably won't even win California. I'll go on a look.
Because there is no Hillary Clinton. There's no juggernaut to me in the Democratic Party right now. Maybe Bernie with all his little donations.
No, I think
but Beto got the little donations.
Yeah, that's true. And Beto's got Hollywood.
But Beto has got the blog demographic. So
actually, Oprah's going to come out of
the Hollywood money will go to Beto.
Have you guys heard the Democrats told the Starbucks CEO, keep making coffee. We don't want you to run and muck up the Democrat primary. He's thinking of running as an independent, and they're telling him stick to coffee.
We don't even know what De Blasio's going to do.
He may run.
That guy dropped. So imagine this. Imagine you're a Democrat running neck and neck with a Republican in Kentucky. This happened with a week to go. You turn on the TV and you see this slick, well-produced ad in your favor. Next ad that comes on, this slick, well-produced ad attacking your opponent. And you turn to your campaign manager and you go, what is that? I never did that. Some calls are made, and then you find out de Blasio just dropped $10 million. Sorry, Bloomberg. I meant Bloomberg. Why did I say de Blasio? Bloomberg just dropped $10 million on our campaign. And he did that in 20 places.
But
I don't know.
I don't see it. I think
that gives him power and influence.
I think this.
He might win the House.
I think the Democrats have overreached too far. Americans are not as. Even Maryland, the Democrats here. I know in Montgomery County, it feels like these people are like, mini Bernie Sanders and mini Asiago Cortezes. But at the end of the day, we're not. At the end of the day, they're not going to win. You can't win without the Midwest. President Trump pretty much has the Midwest locked up, the South locked up. I don't see.
You really think he has the Midwest locked up?
I think he's got
he won Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin by 1%.
That's all that matters.
And to your point,
it's not a lock though.
I know, but
and to your point, even with Maryland, as left as our state is, Bernie Sanders did not win Maryland against Hillary Clinton. He lost by 30 points or so. I mean, it was not a close.
He was very popular in Montgomery County.
Yeah, he was very popular in Montgomery, but the rest of the state
He didn't do well in states where the Democratic constituency has a lot of African Americans. He got cleaned out.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
All right.
But the bottom line, it'll be a lot of fun. I mean, it'll be for us as politicos. We will have a lot of fun speculating about this Democratic primary for quite some time.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you guys
we'll
very
do this
much.
again next month. But our final segment are heroes and villains of the month. I'll start it off. My villain is Senator Chuck Schumer, who defeated my old boss, Alphonse D'Amato. New Yorkers, you deserve better. Bring back D'Amato. Chuck Schumer is my villain. Brian?
Not that much has happened other than Governor Hogan's inauguration, but I gave him one of the awards last year for Person of the Year, so I'm not going to go with him again. I'm going to say there is no hero. There is no hero. Well, it's heroes and villains.
Yes.
So there is no hero. I don't have anyone in particular, but villains. I'm going to go with Chuck Schumer's partner in crime, Nancy Pelosi, because
easy targets, guys.
it's easy targets.
Bonnie and Clyde.
Yes, Bonnie and Clyde. Same
Chucky and
reasons
Nancy.
as the Whites. Nick?
So my villain for the past month would be Congress for accepting their paychecks when federal workers can't. The fact that they are still accepting their pay while the government is shut down is very indicative to me, at least, of where their mindset is. It's easy for you to say no one else is getting paid and still receive your money. I think it'd be interesting to see what would happen if we took away their paychecks when the government was shut down as well. And then I'd have to say my hero, an odd hero actually, would probably be Muller for actually speaking up about the BuzzFeed story. I think the fact that he did the right thing and he came forward and said that this BuzzFeed story was false kind of makes him a hero for me the past month.
And I do have a hero. My hero is the space program. They turned Goddard here turned 60 this year, and big celebration I think is going to be at Goddard. Everyone should attend. But the space program, the only part of the federal government that actually does something that I can point to and hey, look, that's satellite. That was NASA. Oh, that one's SpaceX. But that's NASA, SpaceX, NASA, SpaceX. But NASA.
Hey, Bezos has got his company now coming up that's going to compete against
yes,
SpaceX.
that is true.
And then
but
Space Force, you have to worry about them flying around as well.
Oh, I saw a magazine the other day with Space Force, but that's for next month. We'll talk more about it.
So
we'll add Space Force
next
to
month
the
we'll
list.
open up with the Space Force.
Very
Well,
good.
hey,
Very
thank you
important.
everyone
Thank
for
you,
tuning
everyone.
in, and we'll see you next week. Or next
Next
month.
Next month. I think.
Yeah.
How do we do? Are we clear?
We're going to get arrested on that Nancy Pelosi thing.
No. See, that's why. Hey, how's the audio?
The audio is good. I turned it on to omnidirectional. The stands are being picked up, but I want to make sure the same volume. Next time we should consider a second camera that points backwards to the open forum, so we can have YouTube videos with one mic. Oh, each there's a cookie and cinnamon stick back there. Yeah, no, it's not a cookie, it's a brownie. It's a cookie brownie. Hold up, there's a difference. There's a difference. What's better than just a regular brownie? You gotta be Yeah, I'll be attending the taxi. Oh, really? Yeah. Are you a senior? Dwight, I'm gonna stop the music.